Is the conversation you're just having, that this is a moment of reconciliation, it's a moment of tribute to a great man, and it was not a time to make a political statement, so you shake hands out of respect for the moment and move on.
Folks, there you have John King's analysis of President Obama shaking hands with Raul Casrto of Cuba earlier today in South Africa at Nelson Mandela's memorial service. Welcome back. Hour number 3 of the Steve Malzberg Show. And we are joined right now by Congressman Tim Huelskamp, Republican from the great state of Kansas. Hello again, Congressman.
Hey, Steve. Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine. Great to talk to you. So, what do you make of the handshake?
Well, I was trying to see and read some lips and see what he exactly said, Steve. Near as I could tell, he leaned in and asked Castro, could you give me some pointers on the health care system? But, I mean, my goodness, here is a man still keeping people in prison, and the president cozies up to him. And, I mean, this is quite embarrassing and quite a major mistake, except I think it was planned ahead of time. It wasn't an accident. Those things are all prearranged, but very embarrassing and sends a pretty clear signal, along with the signal we sent last week to Iran, is just continue to do what you're doing and we'll look the other way.
And, of course, does this make up, I wonder, in his own mind for failing to shake the hand of the Iranian president at the United Nations after he was rebuffed?
Yeah, well, it says a lot about this administration's commitment to liberty around the world, and they're willing to look the other way. And we've seen previous administrations in the past that took a stance that will accommodate, whether it be the Soviet Union or other folks, rather than being a pillar for liberty and freedom around the world.
I mean, is this a big deal? Rand Paul was on earlier, and he said, let's not make more of it than it is. Then you've had, Congressman Roth Layton saying that it made her nauseous, and she held up a picture at the hearing with Kerry and blasted the whole handshake, and Rubio blasted it. Do you think it's that big a deal or not?
Well, when you tie it together with other actions, whether it's dealing with Iran and say, hey, you can keep your what you develop on your nuclear weapon capability and numerous other things. I mean, this administration has taken a complete U-turn from the previous administrations and said, you know what, we're going to accommodate these regimes that attack liberties, and in the past, even Democrats. Presidents have said no. We're going to actually say no. We're going to be a leader in the world for freedom and liberty. So it's one amongst many that I think you've seen out of this administration and the Secretary of State's office.
All right, let me ask you about the budget. I'm hearing reports that there are talks that are close to fruition between Ryan in the House and Murray in the Senate. Are we close to a budget deal?
We're hearing many of the same rumors. I made a prediction with some of my constituents yesterday and over the weekend that if Washington does the same thing they always do, they'll come to a bipartisan agreement to raise spending for everybody. And that seems to be the deal that's in the work, to undo the only spending cut since in years, perhaps decades, the sequester, and replace it with even more spending. And that's a deal that conservatives can't accept, and it's going to add to the deficit. It's going to say, hey, we got cuts today. We're going to put those off till sometime in the future. That's the Washington way, Steve. That's the rumors we've heard, and the Democrat Party will support that, and the leadership in the House will support that, and 30 or 40 or 50 others, and then it'll pass on to the president. But it will do nothing to get to the underlying problem in Washington, that's spending too much money.
So you and the other conservatives, hardline, I wouldn't say hardline, Tea Party people that they're referred to, and not in a derogatory sense here, just for clarification,
sure.
You're a no vote, and you believe they're a no vote. So this is something that will pass mostly with Democratic votes in the House?
Well, the only way it could pass, I think, would be with Democrat votes. At the end of the day, I'm guessing less than half the Republicans would support it. I mean, for the last 2 years, our leadership has told conservatives, particularly on the House side, that, you know what, we kept the sequester. That's the only spending cuts we've ever had. That's the biggest deal we've achieved in 3 years of majority in the House. They're just about ready to trade that away, just like they did last December. They undid part of the sequester last December, and they undid part of it the December before. It's the typical end-of-the-year deal, and I think the American people are tired of the same old way. It's status quo. It's another addition of $100 billion in new spending that just 2 weeks ago, actually a little more than 2 weeks ago, during the debate over the government slowdown or shutdown, Steve, they said, hey, at least we have the sequester. and we're never going to give that up, and that's just about what they're ready to do, and that's certainly a no vote for me and any other conservative.
Are you disappointed in Ryan, which I think is obvious, and why do you think they're going down this road?
I don't know why. We'll see what they finally announce. It's hard to speculate on the reasoning that will come along with this proposed deal.
Could it be they don't want any controversy? They just think that, moving forward to 014, healthcare, and nothing but. They don't want to muddy the waters with the PR and the whole thing?
That could be, but it's status quo. It's more of the same, more spending. That's how we got to this problem. You wonder what happened when we took over the House with Republicans. What's the difference? We're still spending more money than we were before. We're still putting off the needed reforms to entitlement that Paul Ryan has talked about for years. I've only been here 3 years. He's talked about it a long time before then. We're just throwing those away and saying, you know what? We're not going to deal with that this year, but the costs continue to mount up. It's time we stand up. It's time Washington, D.C. would listen. And so, I'm disappointed with the details as we see them now. They may not come out that way. They may not be able to pass that through the House, but we'll find that out hopefully in the next couple of days.
Let me give you some numbers. Quinnipiac University poll just out. Obama's approval rating at 38%. That's down from November 12th, 1 point, so statistically it's the same. But his approval rating among young voters in the poll, 18 to 29, down to 41%, down to 50 with Hispanics, because he was way up with Hispanics. And when you look at independents, 30%. And I'm looking also here. For the first time, 47% majority of voters said they would like to see Republicans take control of both the House and the Senate. So terrible news for Obama and the Democrats, and pretty good news for you guys.
Well, 11 months to go before an election, and far too many people in Washington look at those polls and try to decide what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, what you don't see in Washington, D.C. on either side generally is a vision of where we head from here. For the Democrat Party, it's Obamacare and massive deficits for years to come. For Republicans, we don't like Obamacare. We can't get rid of it. We're going to have slightly smaller than massive deficits for years to come. And we haven't passed a single plan through the House. We haven't brought one to the floor as a replacement for Obamacare, and I think it's high time we did that. We should bring tax reform to the floor. But far too often in Washington, Steve, my concern is that Republicans are not presenting an alternative. Simply being against Obama didn't work 11 months ago, and remains to be seen whether doing nothing for the next 11 months, or I guess 11 months going forward till the next election is going to win it for Republicans. I don't think so. I think people are looking for a vision. What are we going to do to save Medicaid care? What are we going to do to save Social Security? What are we going to do to make sure we don't have massive deficits for years to come? And this plan will be just another deal.
I mean, wasn't Ryan supposed to address all that?
That was the plan. I mean, we've had 3 straight Ryan budgets passed through the House, and that was all part of it. We had a deal amongst Republicans last January in Williamsburg, Virginia. We sat down, closed the doors. We worked out these details. We said this is exactly what we weren't going to do. We weren't going to put off what we need to decide today. Paul Ryan's been talking for years. We got to face the music about past decisions. We got to move forward now. Every day we put it off. Every year we waste, put it off, makes it harder for the day of reckoning. That will inevitably come in the future, Steve.
Congressman, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you. Tim Huelskamp, ladies and gentlemen, representing the 1st Congressional District in the great state of Kansas. When we come back, we're going to be joined by the great senior political analyst at the Washington Examiner, Michael Barone will join us. So always great to talk to Michael. We'll talk to him about Obama, his latest piece on Obama. But also later on in the program, I do want to talk about the higher deductibles and about a kid who was suspended. I think he's 6-year-old from school. You know what he pretended to do? He pretended to shoot arrows with his pencil. If you're watching me, this is you pull back on the pencil and pretended to shoot arrows, and he got suspended. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.